Honestly, it's kind of funny that I'm making this video now because I've already talked about Mortal Kombat 2, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, even all the 3D era games, Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon, even some modern games like MK9 and MKX, and somehow I'm barely getting to the first game that started it all, that started Mortal Kombat, the game that basically created the franchise that I'm constantly talking about on this channel. And to be honest, this is kind of ironic because out of every Mortal Kombat game I've covered so far, this game is probably the most influential one. Not necessarily the biggest or the best, but it is the most important, and that's almost impossible to argue against. Because when Mortal Kombat released in arcades in 1992, it didn't just create another fighting game, it created a cultural phenomenon. It changed how people looked at video games as a whole, not just Mortal Kombat, video games as a whole. It helped shape, the fighting game community. It contributed to the creation of the ESRB rating system that you see on every single game today. And it established an identity that Mortal Kombat is still using over 30 years later. So why does the original Mortal Kombat still matter? But before we get into it, if you guys don't know me by now, I'm Mr. Frosty Flames, but you can call me Mike. We do anything gaming, news, reviews, playthroughs, etc. and we do it in a chill way. So if you enjoy that style of content, be sure to hit that sub button and join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Anyways, let's get back to the video. So to understand why Mortal Kombat still matters, you have to understand what fighting games looked like before it. Before that, Street Fighter was dominating arcades, specifically Street Fighter 2. Fighting games were becoming incredibly popular, and then Midway came along with something that looked completely different. Instead of like traditional cartoon style characters, Mortal Kombat used digitized actors, like real people with real movements and realistic looking violence. And then you had blood, a lot of blood. And suddenly this wasn't just another fighting game. People wanted to see what all the controversy was about. They wanted to see the fatalities, they wanted to see the blood, and they wanted to figure out what secrets this game was hiding. Mortal Kombat immediately had an identity, and that's incredibly important. And then another reason why the original Mortal Kombat still matters is because of all the iconic characters that came from it. Literally everybody in the original Mortal Kombat is iconic. It's a household name that people that don't even play Mortal Kombat know. People like Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Liu Kang, Raiden, Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade, Kano, Shang Tsung, Goro. These characters weren't just fighters, they became the foundation of an entire universe. Think about it. When you play Mortal Kombat today, you're still seeing characters that originated in this game, like Scorpion and Sub-Zero. They became some of the most recognizable characters in gaming history, alongside Johnny Cage, who became one of the franchise's biggest personalities. Liu Kang and Raiden, they're very central figures to the story, and Kano and Shang Tsung and Goro became one of the most iconic villains, and that's an incredible legacy for just one arcade game to have. But let's be honest, you can't talk about Mortal Kombat without talking about fatalities, because this is one thing that separated Mortal Kombat from everything else. You beat your opponent, and instead of just getting like a very simplistic KO screen or victory screen, you could actually like finish your opponent. No, ayo, not like that, but you could rip their heart out, you know what I mean, fatalities. You could set them on fire, decapitate them. This is what was happening in an arcade in front of everyone, literally kids too. And that created an entirely different kind of excitement. People would crowd around the machine, they'd hear somebody say, "Oh, did you see what he just did? He ripped his head off." And suddenly everyone wanted to know how to perform it. That sense of discovery became a huge part of Mortal Kombat, and fatalities eventually became just as important to the identity of the franchise as the fighting itself. Take Mortal Kombat Armageddon. They stripped away unique fatalities for every character, and people hated it. That's how important fatalities are to the identity of each Mortal Kombat character and just Mortal Kombat as a whole. But then after all that, Mortal Kombat became extremely controversial. Parents weren't exactly thrilled about children playing a game where people were getting graphically killed. Politicians even started talking about violent video games. News outlets covered Mortal Kombat. Congress held hearings about video game violence, and Mortal Kombat became one of the biggest examples used in that entire debate. But here's the crazy part. The controversy that helped Mortal Kombat, that helped it in a good way. It made it more famous. Like, the publicity was like, man, Mortal Kombat is violent. I want to play that. I want to see what these congressmen are talking about. People who had never played video games or even Mortal Kombat suddenly knew what it was. It became something that parents were talking about, kids were talking about, politicians, the media, everybody. Mortal Kombat wasn't just a game anymore. It was a cultural conversation. And obviously all this leads to the ESRB rating system, the Entertainment Software Rating Board that was established in 1994 following the growing controversy surrounding violent and mature video games. So every every time you pick up a game and see that little rating in the corner of the box, you're looking at part of a system that was created during the exact controversy that Mortal Kombat helped fuel. That's an insane legacy for just a fighting game. I mean, this is just gaming history as a whole. It also helped shape the FGC. Mortal Kombat's influence wasn't just about controversy, it also helped shape what would eventually become the modern fighting game community. Remember, this was an arcade game. You weren't just sitting at home playing online. If you wanted to play against somebody, you went to the arcade, you put your quarter in, you fought somebody standing next to you, you lost, and you either walked away or you put another quarter in and tried again. That created tons of competition. People wanted to learn the matchups, they learned combos, they learned secrets, they figured out, sort of fighting strategies, they watched better players, and they challenged each other. And that was the foundation of arcade fighting game culture. And Mortal Kombat was right there with Street Fighter in the middle of all of it. It created the Mortal Kombat formula too. Another reason why this original one matters is it established so many things that would become synonymous with Mortal Kombat, like secrets and secret characters and unlockable characters, or just like characters in the background that would eventually mean something later on. It established hidden moves, fatalities, the rivalries, between Sonya and Kano, Shang Tsung and Liu Kang, Scorpion Sub-Zero, the mysterious lore, the bosses, the absurd characters like Johnny Cage even, the cinematic story. It wasn't really cinematic back then, but it set the foundation for it with like the whole tournament setting, and even like the Easter eggs that go along with the secrets. Mortal Kombat didn't just create a roster and just a simple fighting game, it created a world filled with lore. And that's something I think that often gets overlooked when people talk about the original game. Mortal Kombat wasn't just a fighting game. Even in 1992, when you were playing the game, it wanted you to wonder, who was this mysterious green ninja who would come up? Why are these two characters fighting? What or who is Shang Tsung? Why could he shapeshift? What's happening on this island? He's like the boss. Like, what is he doing? What's going on? What happens if I perform this secret move? Blah, blah, blah. That curiosity became a huge part of Mortal Kombat's identity. And obviously, the biggest legacy is what came after. Mortal Kombat 1 obviously created the foundation, but then came Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and on and on and on. The 3D era, even the modern NRS era, and everything in between too, like Mortal Kombat Mythologies and, Special Forces with Jax, man. We don't talk about that, but it's whatever. Entire generations of Mortal Kombat exist because this arcade cabinet existed and it was successful. And that's why it's funny that I'm covering this game so far into my series. I spent all these videos talking about the legacy of Mortal Kombat games, even modern ones, 3D era ones, and even some arcade ones. But when it comes to the game with arguably the biggest legacy, it was sitting right at the beginning, and I'm covering it now. And obviously, Mortal Kombat wasn't perfect by today's standards. It was far from it. The gameplay is primitive compared to modern Mortal Kombat. The roster is very tiny, the movesets are extremely simple, and even the AI is just broken sometimes, and some of the mechanics feel incredibly dated. And if you're someone who's only played the modern Mortal Kombat games, going back to 1992 might feel rough, but that's okay, because the question isn't whether MK1 could compete with, MK1 from 2023. It obviously can't. The question is, does it still have something worth experiencing? And I think it absolutely does, because when you play this game, you're experiencing the beginning. You're seeing where the characters are coming from. You're seeing the original versions of mechanics that would eventually become staples of the series. You're seeing the first version of this world intended by Ed Boon and the rest of his team, John Tobias, whatever, right? And this is all something you can't replicate. So in the end, why does the original Mortal Kombat still matter? Because without this game, there is no Mortal Kombat as we know it. There is no Get Over Here, there is no Scorpion, there is no Johnny Cage, there's no Mortal Kombat movie, there's no Sub-Zero, no Raiden, no fatalities, no Earthrealm, no Outworld, no 30 plus years of Mortal Kombat history. And most importantly, there's no foundation for the franchise to keep reinventing itself. Mortal Kombat has survived because it constantly changed. It went from the arcade 2D to 3D, from digitized actors to fully rendered characters with voice actors and stuff like that, from arcade machines to online multiplayer, from simple stories, slideshow arcade ending stories, to cinematic full-on movie stories. And through all those changes, the DNA of the original Mortal Kombat has remained. That's why this game still matters. But now I want to hear from you guys. Do you guys still go back and play the original Mortal Kombat, perhaps in the Legacy Collection or something? And do you think it's the most important game in the entire franchise? Let me know down in the comments below. Well, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Thank you guys for watching. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Yeah.